Hi everyone, I am back. It has been a long while, but this is the first one for a while, and what I'm going to do today is go through the changes that are in WordPress 4.7. Now, WordPress 4.7 was released some time ago, so this is a little out of date, but I need to do it for clients as a catch-up, and it's worth making it public, so here we are. And there's loads of great stuff in WordPress 4.7, so let's get cracking and I'll talk you through. First of all is something which probably at the moment isn't very useful to you at all, and that is that in WordPress 4.7 the WordPress REST API was properly introduced. And this means if you're running WordPress 4.7, you can get something like this, which is your blog will output, or your website will output, a programmatic list of posts that looks a bit like this. It looks like gobbledygook. The key thing that you need to know here is that there is nothing new in here, and there is no sensitive information in here, and there's no information in here that could not previously be retrieved by other means. So there's nothing insecure about this, but this feature will enable the WordPress developers to develop some great new features in the future, and you'll see cool stuff coming in new themes and new plugins that will make use of this functionality in the future. But if you see this, or if you've heard about this or know about it, know that it's perfectly safe. It's not revealing any information that wasn't previously available, and it will hopefully help us do some great things for you. So that's the REST API, and that was a big introduction. Let's move on and talk about things that do probably concern you, and we're going to start by just going and adding a new post into this demo site that I have set up. And I'll talk you through some changes that have been made to the WordPress editor. The first of which is to do with keyboard shortcuts. So you can actually use keys on your keyboard to change the formatting of text. So I'm looking at bold here. Let's just go and type some text. And if I highlight a word and I can use my keyboard, so I'm not going to move my mouse, you won't see anything move, but I will use my keyboard to make that bold and italic, and I can do that using keyboard shortcuts. And what's new in WordPress 4.7 is that these keyboard shortcuts are displayed when you hover over the relevant buttons, and there are even some in this drop-down list. So I'm on a Mac, and this symbol is Control Option 1 will give me a heading 1. So let's watch that happen. I can do that, and then while I'm on that line, Control Option 1 or Control Alt 1, and that turns it into heading 1. And I can do 2, 3, 4, and so on, and cycle through my headings, or I can change it back to paragraph text if I want to. And I can do that all using the keyboard, and the shortcuts for doing that are now displayed to you. So that's really handy. Another thing that you may notice has changed is that this drop-down list here has moved up a line. So there is this thing called the toolbar toggle, which turns on and off the second row of buttons, and if you had that previously turned off, then you won't have seen this at all. And if you had this previously turned on, then this list of styles will have been down here on the second line. This has been deemed important enough that it should be moved up to the first line of formatting buttons, and you should really be using these headings. If you're typing headings, then use these heading styles to format your text. That's really good practice, because then your theme can ensure consistency of the design of your site. A couple of buttons on here that you may have used have actually been removed as well. So there used to be an underline button, and you'll see there is no underline button anymore. And with these justification options, there used to be a full width justify, which spread your text across entire lines and filled the whole width of the page. Underline has been removed because underlining text is considered bad practice on the web. An underline on a piece of text generally signifies a link, so underlining something which isn't a link is considered bad practice. You can still underline text if you knew what the keyboard shortcut was for underlining text, but that's not displayed to you. So if you didn't know what that was before, there's no way to find out, and there's no button to do that now. And justification has been removed basically because it didn't work very well. It required browser compatibility and worked differently in different web browsers, and it could be bad for readability in many cases. So they've taken out underlining and justifying of text. One other thing that I'll point out, which you may notice, which has been cleaned up, and I point this out because I was partly responsible for it, and that is if you create a link here, let's just link that to link that back to press ups. And if I create that link, this remove link button used to be a cross, which I thought was really confusing. I used to click it to close this little pop-up, but I clicked it and actually removed the link every time I did it. So this is now properly labeled as remove link and has a proper remove link icon. So you may or may not notice that. That's an improvement that I helped make, so I thought I'd point that out and be proud of it. Okay, so that's all the changes in the editor, some useful stuff in there I hope you'll find. Let's go and head into the customizer. Get rid of that link. Let's go and head into the customizer, which is in appearance. We'll leave this site. That's just my unsaved post causing that. So this is a customizer, and hopefully you don't find yourself in here too often, because this is used for making customizations to your whole site, for changing styles and widgets and menus. So you shouldn't be in here every day changing stuff, but they have made some improvements here as well. The first of which is, if you like to write a little bit of code, a bit of CSS, then there's now an additional CSS section, and this actually all updates in real time within the customizer. So I can type CSS in here. Let's do turn all our text red, and now anything which isn't specifically another color has turned red. We saw that change in real time, and if I change it blue, we'll see it update as well. You used to be able to do this kind of thing using plugins, but it's now a part of the WordPress core experience, and anyone can do this on any site that has WordPress. So that's a really handy feature if you're used to using a bit of CSS to customize your own site. Another great thing you can do from here now is you can actually create pages. So previously, let's say we were setting up a new site and we wanted to create a menu for our site. Let's just go and edit this menu one. If you were adding stuff to this menu, let's say we wanted to create a staff page, we would have to exit the customizer and go and create that page, and then save it, and then come back into the customizer before we could add it into this menu. But now I can just click add items, and I now have an add new page link here, and I can just go the team and click add, and that page then gets created as an empty page and immediately populated into the menu. So that's really cool. And if you're setting up a new site, that's going to be a really handy feature for creating the skeleton of your site as you're doing the initial build of it. So again, possibly not something you would use, but in certain situations, it's really going to speed you up. Another thing you may notice here are these little blue circles. These are little editing tips. So in the customizer, it can sometimes be hard to work out how to change a particular element of your site. And these little blue pencils will help you to do that. So let's say we want to change this tagline. I can click on the blue circle, and that takes me in my customizer straight to this option here, tagline option, and I can update that, and that will update in real time. Cool, so that's great. So these little pencil icons just let you change things. This is a widget over here. If I want to know how to edit that, I can just tap on that one, and that takes me straight to that widget. So these are really handy little shortcuts for navigating around inside the customizer, and hopefully it'll be really useful to you if you use it. Behind the scenes, there's some other stuff that has gone on inside the customizer. If you have a theme that supports it, you can now have video headers, and you can edit video headers from inside the customizer. And there's a load of other stuff that's gone on under the bonnet that you won't necessarily know has happened, but will magically make things better for you and improve your experience. I'll just also point out the little blue circles here that I showed you. They are also dependent on your theme supporting them. So if your theme doesn't tell WordPress that these different elements are editable, then the blue circles won't appear. But for things like widgets and menus, they always appear. So you should see some of them, but they are somewhat dependent on your theme declaring where the little circles should go. Okay, the next thing is there's a really nice little improvement. Let's stay and save our changes. We liked our changes. The next thing is an improvement for international users. Now you may not see this feature immediately because you need to have more than one language installed into WordPress to be able to see it. And if you want to install an additional language, you need to go to Settings and General. WordPress by default comes with English United States installed. I have installed English UK and English New Zealand as well, and I can change to those. You can install another language just by selecting it here. So let's go for Australian English and save changes. And because I'm just using a different version of English, you may not notice all that much, but it does now say "G'day" up at the top instead of "Howdy" or whatever it said before. And you'll see in the list that I now have 4 different versions of English installed, including English Australia. And now that I have more than one language installed, users of my site, so my editors and my administrators, they can now go to their profile, or I can go and edit it for them if I'm an administrator. And there's now a language drop down. Each user can have their own choice of language for the back end of WordPress, for the WordPress dashboard. So if you have different users across the globe and they speak different languages, or they want to use WordPress in different languages, you can install the language from Settings General, and then they can go and choose to use that as their own personal language. Previous to this change, every user on the site used the same language for the WordPress admin. So this is now user specific, and that's great for international websites. Another thing that I do want to talk about, but that you won't actually be able to see here, is there is now enhanced PDF support in the media library. So what happens here is if I previously uploaded a PDF document, such as this one, it just gives me a little document icon to show that it's there. That's not brilliant. This one here is actually an image of the front page of that document that I created myself. What happens now is if you upload a PDF document and if your host supports it, this is entirely dependent on your host actually supporting this feature. And you'll find some hosts don't, so you may not see this happen. But if you upload a PDF document, WordPress will attempt to create an image of the first page of that document and use that in its display in the media library. Again, that's a really, really useful feature if your host supports it. My hosting doesn't support it, so I can't demonstrate it to you, unfortunately. But that was a really good improvement too. So that's all of the big stuff that's come in 4.7. It was a really good release, and I'll get my clients updated to it as soon as I possibly can. And then we'll wait and see what changes come in WordPress 4.8.